NFL draft. The New York Jets select Sauce Gardner.
Sauce Gardner is a New York Jet!
Swaggy Sauce Gardner.
I love Sauce. I love his tape. I love his press technique. I love his confidence. He has everything you want to see in the position. And I think Robert Saleh in this scheme is perfect. It's a hand-in-glove fit for him, man.
Garrett Wilson.
It's Garrett Wilson! The New York Jets have just got two big-time playmakers!
I believe that Garrett Wilson is going to be the most impactful rookie receiver in this class. And I think we see Zach Wilson play like he did the last 6 games of the year, times 10, and have a phenomenal second season.
Wow, you think? Yeah! Yeah! Let's Jermaine Johnson!
Brees Hall, running back, Iowa State.
Brees Hall, oh my God, they got him! They went offense. They went with the best running back in the draft. Jeremy Rucker, oh my God! The Long Island native is a New York Jet!
J-E-T-S, Jet!
Let's go!
Yo, what is good, Jet Station? Your boy is back. We got a special guest on the show. You guys know him very well. He goes by Matt. Welcome to the show, Matt. How you doing today, my man?
Doing good, man. That intro gets me so hyped every time. I love it.
I know. I haven't seen that intro myself in quite some time, so it gets me hyped up. We got a stacked draft class to look forward to this season, everybody, because, man, oh, man, looking back on that 2022 draft when it happened in April, and now fast forwarding to today, seeing what they're doing in the preseason, seeing what they're doing in training camp, this Jets team is about to take flight this season. So let's start off with this, Matt. We got some really great news today about our quarterback in Zach Wilson. There was a lot of fear. We all saw the report. Zach Wilson's knee surgery was a success. They went into his knee. They did not see any further damage to get us a little worried about him potentially missing more times than they initially thought. Obviously, you go to that Friday night game, you see the non-contact injury. Jets fans are thinking of the worst possible case scenario, being a torn ACL or even being a torn meniscus in the worst case. And then we hear good news that it could be just 2 to 4 weeks. But we did not know until the surgery, which was today, and it got confirmed. Zach Wilson had a successful surgery. He's going to miss around 2 to 6 weeks is what the report is, or 4 to 6 weeks. So what's your initial reaction about that, Matt, that Zach Wilson had successful knee surgery and there's no further damage in his knee?
Yeah, I mean, thank God, because we were talking off air before we got started. It looked like it was going to be worst case scenario here, and you're going to lose Zach for the entire season, which would be awful, because then, that's just another year of not knowing what Zach is. And pretty much everyone has said this year is all about finding out what you have with Zach Wilson. So if you didn't have that opportunity, I mean, that would have just been atrocious. But now it seems like, maybe he'll miss week 1, potentially he could potentially be ready to go for week 1. But me personally, I think that's a little bit optimistic. But the timeline is something that you're still going to see more than enough from Zach Wilson this year to know what he is. And that's a great thing for this Jets.
Zach Wilson's going to play football for the Jets this year. That's all I care about, because being away, me and Matt were talking about this off air, being away and not being able to watch the game live and checking my phone and getting a text from my friend that Zach blew out his knee and going on Twitter and seeing all these reports that he tore his ACL. You guys have no idea what that felt like. I mean, you guys watched it, so you guys had a different experience, but I was like in a foreign country, just like freaking out, not around anybody that's into sports. Like, no one knew what the emotions was going through my head. And thinking of the reality of Zach being out for the season, and now fast forwarding to today, hearing that that's not the case. He's going to be playing football. What a sigh of relief. Finally, some positive injury news. First, it was Mekhi Becton. That was devastating. But the Jets bounced back by getting Dwayne Brown, which we'll be discussing in today's stream. But, man, it feels good that Zach Wilson's going to be okay, because Jets fans, we can all exhale. We can all finally let go of that breath that we've been holding on to since Friday night. But shout out to everybody in the chat tuning in. I see everyone, to George, Jets Forever, Zachary, Manny, D. Santana, the Buffalo Jet fans in the chat, the Salty Teacher, PCR, Mitt Flair. Appreciate everybody tuning in. I missed all you guys. I appreciate you guys staying tuned to the channel, even though I was away for 2 weeks, but it's all good. You had great content creators like Matt and everybody else keeping you up to date on what's going on at Jets training camp. If you guys could do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button for your boy if you're enjoying the stream, and do not forget to check out Matt's channel down below in the description, but I'm sure you guys are already subscribed over there to Matt. So Matt, let's get into training camp. What is your biggest takeaways the last 2 weeks when it comes to training camp? Is there anybody that you've been hearing that's been standing out over other people, whether that's on the offense or the defense? Who are those players that's really coming out there in training camp and really showing up every single day consistently?
Yeah, on the offensive side, I'm going to go with Tyler Conklin. I just feel like every week or every day really at camp, you're just like, oh, another big catch from Tyler Conklin. And we saw it in game for the first time. And that kind of cemented my thought. For most of this offseason, I thought that Tyler Conklin's going to end up being this team's tight end one, and he's going to be a very reliable pass catcher for Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco too. But I think that he's someone who I am just thrilled with his progression. I think he is someone who's going to, like I said, he's going to have a really immediate impact in this offense. I think some fans are still sleeping on him for some reason. I think he's going to be someone who's a very, very vital piece of the passing attack. And if I'm going to go on the defensive side of the ball, Michael Clemens is someone who surprised me. He was dominant against Philly in the preseason game, and he's fighting for a spot in the rotation, and he's making a name for himself. I think he's doing a pretty good job of showing what he's best at, which is just his intensity, and just he's so physical, which is really fun to watch.
Violence is the word I get from Michael Clemens. Shout out to the Salty Teacher for becoming a rookie member on Jets Media. I appreciate that, man. Now you have access to some dynamic emojis in the chat. So do me a favor, the Salty Teacher. Spam those Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh emojis in the chat. I appreciate you joining the membership. So, Matt, you mentioned briefly the preseason. I watched it for the first time yesterday, and I was blown away by Michael Clemens as well. I mean, his motor was ridiculous. He has a different energy to him, a different style to his game, where he's just going to be sprinting people down, whether they're 20 yards down the field or they're right in front of you. It's an outside run. It's up the middle. It just feels like Michael Clemens. And we knew this when we drafted him. He just feels like a Robert Saleh guy. And I just love what I saw from Michael Clemens. And the overall defensive line as a whole, Tanzel Smart really impressed me. Even the motor from Jermaine Johnson, even though he didn't really do anything statistically. I love what I saw from Jermaine. There was a lot of guys in that defensive line that really stood out to me. Now, when it comes to the preseason game as a whole, what was your biggest takeaways? Was it, we saw Zach Wilson, the first series, he airmailed the pass to Garrett Wilson, and then he throws an interception. And then the second series, he had a really great pass to Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore just absolutely looked amazing on that quick slant one-on-one. He had a good timing route to Garrett Wilson, I believe. And then he also had a couple first down passes to Tyler Conklin before he had that play where he got injured. And then Mike White comes in, the offense actually starting to, fizzle out with Mike White. I feel like he had some good plays, some bad throws, and then Strevler comes in at the end to be the hero ball. But I did like the resiliency from the defense to really, after giving up 14 points early, they really held their ground. Jamie and Sherwood looked pretty good in year number 2. Hamza Nasruddin flying all over the place, and the defensive line was doing their thing. So what was your biggest takeaways from game 1 of the preseason? Because there's a lot of guys trying to fight to make this roster.
Yeah, I think – and not really even the first team defense, because they were missing, I believe, 8 starters. So it was about half of the first team defense. They probably struggled the most, I thought. Obviously, the first drive, they're marching right down the field. Quincy Williams with the late hit out of bounds wasn't good, and they score. And then after the interception, they allow another touchdown after they were in pretty good in field position. But I really was impressed with the second and third team guys. You mentioned Clemens, you mentioned Smart. Another guy who's really fighting for a roster spot, Jabari Zuniga, I thought had a really good game. And even the safety Wild Goose, I thought he was making some plays. And these are guys who, like we said, they're fighting to stay around on this roster. They're depth pieces. And on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with 2 tight ends, actually, and one of them being Lawrence Cager, who's a converted tight end. He was making plays, and the other, we were at his signing, Jeremy Ruckert, obviously catching the touchdown. But he also, to go into more depth on Jeremy Ruckert outside of just the touchdown, I don't know how much you were able to see of him really blocking, but it was just, that really impressed me. I think he's maybe the best blocking tight end that the Jets have right now, and I think he'll get on the field because of that.
Yeah, I saw that clip on Twitter actually of that run blocking rep that he had, and he just absolutely took that guy out of the play, and that's why we drafted him. That's what gives Jets fans a lot of excitement about Jeremy Rucker. Not only is he efficient in the pass game, but he's known to be a run blocker. He's known to be a good pass blocker, and that's why the Jets drafted him. They feel like he wasn't utilized as a pass catcher enough at Ohio State because of the talent around him, and it's good to see that in his first preseason game, he kind of proved that run blocking ability isn't just talk. He actually showed up and did that, and of course, he gets in the end zone for a touchdown. So Lawrence Cager also had 2 back-to-back receptions, which I absolutely loved. I feel like the Jets have a really deep tight end room. We talk about the 2 top guys that we got in free agency, who's going to be leading the way in Conklin and Uzama. And then, Wesco's still on the roster. We still have Kenny Yeboah. We have Lawrence Cager. We have, obviously, Jeremy Ruckert. So when it comes to the tight ends, Matt, if you had to guess the 53-man roster, when it comes to that position, how many tight ends are we going to be rolling in to the season with, and who are they going to be?
Yeah, I'm thinking 4. And I definitely think it's going to be Uzama, Conklin, Ruckert. But then you have a really legitimate fight between Cager and Kenny Yeboah. And I liked what we saw from Kenny Yeboah at the end of last year. But right now, I think the pass catching ability that Cager brings, I think I would choose him over Yeboah and hope that you could stick him and stash him on the practice squad, but you might risk him getting picked up somewhere else. And, the Jets, for the first time in a while, have some difficult decisions to make. They're going to cut some guys who, you'd probably like to keep around, but the depth is a little bit different now. And tight end, I think, is one of those positions where you're going to let someone loose and, you might feel a little guilty about it because they can play.
And I love that the tight ends were such a big focal point in that game. Where you just can tell that they're going to be force feeding that position. Mike LaFleur finally has some players on this roster. We saw Tyler Conklin get involved. CJ Uzama got targeted in the end zone, which wasn't completed. But I just feel like this tight end room is going to be really fun to watch. And then my biggest takeaways from the rookies in that game: Sauce Gardner wasn't really targeted, so it's hard to get an evaluation on him. Breece Hall had a cool first down run. I saw that, which was really awesome. Garrett Wilson had, I think, 2 receptions, which he really flashed. Jermaine Johnson had a high motor, and then Clemens looked like an absolute beast. Max Mitchell, I was watching him on certain plays. He got a lot of playing time. I'm pretty sure he played left tackle and right tackle, I believe. So what was your initial thoughts of the debut of the 2022 rookie class in the preseason?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some positives to take away there. For me, we'll start at the beginning. Like you said, Sauce Gardner, hard to get an evaluation on because he wasn't really targeted, but he didn't look out of place at all. None of the big plays were really his fault or anything like that. So I guess that's a plus. Obviously, Garrett Wilson, I thought the route running was really impressive with him. If Zach Wilson hits him on that first drive, then that stat line looks a lot different. And we're probably talking about him as being one of the standout stars. Jermaine Johnson didn't have that big of a stat line, but I thought there were a couple nice rushes from him. Breece Hall, some of the numbers don't look great, but that one run that you're talking about, I think, is what will get us excited there. Obviously, Ruckert had the touchdown, which is good. We love that. We talked about his run blocking, which stood out to me. Michael Clemens had a ton of pressures. And also with Max Mitchell getting a ton of playing time, I thought he was fine. He didn't really stand out to me as like, oh my God, that was a massive success for him. But he didn't do anything where he stood out in a negative way either, which honestly is probably a pretty good sign for your tackle. So overall, I thought it was a pretty successful day for the first draft class playing their first game. And also we saw some stuff from the UDFAs. Bam Knight had that big kick return to lead to the scoring chance, and he also scored a touchdown too at the end of the game. So I think that's something to make note of too.
Yeah, I love Bam Knight. I feel like he has a chance to really do something. I mean, the running back position is another group that's so deep. It's obvious that Carter and Hall are going to be 1 and 2, but outside of that, Tevin Coleman's most likely going to make it. We still have Ty Johnson. We have Bam Knight. We have P. Ryan. We have a lot of guys on that at that position group. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that shapes out when they start making some roster cuts. Speaking of some cuts, the Jets had to trim their team down to make 5 roster moves. They released Luke Barco, Derek Kelly, DN Timmy Ward, and wide receiver Rashard Davis. And they also had to place Mekhi on IR, which officially makes him out for the season. So let's talk about that, Matt. Mekhi Becton is officially done for the year. And the Jets have signed Dwayne Brown officially. I think the contract details came out today or yesterday. Big move from the Jets to get Dwayne Brown. And obviously we the Jets were interested in Brown even while Mekhi was healthy. We saw him at the green and white scrimmage. They were trying to get him on the roster to be that swing tackle. And then Mekhi goes down, and then Dwayne Brown and his agent kind of get some leverage here because the Jets are desperate and they have to get him. Otherwise, we're going to have Max Mitchell out there. So obviously it's a big negative because we want our guy Mekhi Becton out there who's drafted to be the franchise tackle. We're never going to see that AVT and Mekhi Becton duo that we were dreaming about, but it is a positive that we're able to, turn around and get a seasoned veteran who's a multi-time Pro Bowler who has experience in the system early in his career and has a relationship already with George Fant. So what's your thoughts of Mekhi Becton being done for the season and the Jets pivoting to getting Brown?
Yeah, really unfortunate with Mekhi Becton. I was looking forward to seeing him. Obviously, he comes back. It looks like he's in really good shape. Was working hard, and he was an off-season topic all year long. And it's really a shame that he got hurt and is going to be out this season. But Joe Douglas was wise to pivot quickly, and he signed a really good player in Dwayne Brown. Yes, he's older, but he's coming off a Pro Bowl season. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler. He's an All-Pro like 10 years ago. So I'm not expecting him to be at that level, but I think he is more than serviceable. And he's going to play left tackle, and Fant's going to scoot back over to the right side. But I'm not really too worried about Fant playing on the right side. I know how good he was last year at left tackle. But on the right side, even in 2020, I thought he impressed me. He was better than I anticipated. And when he did struggle at times, he was playing next to Greg Van Roten, who, all due respect to him, isn't the same kind of player that Elijah Vera Tucker is. So my hope is that playing with a more quality guard next to him is going to help him, play to a high level again. But I'm really happy with the Dwayne Brown addition because you have to protect your quarterback's blind side. And that's what they're doing here by bringing in this guy who, again, 14-year NFL veteran, solid player. He's going to be good for this team.
And he's going to be next to Lincoln Tomlinson, who's a Pro Bowler of his own. So now the left side, it has 2 Pro Bowlers. We have Connor McGovern in the middle, who's, I would say, an average center, maybe above average if you're being nice. And then AVT, who we all think has Pro Bowl potential, and George Fant coming off a season where absolutely perfect in terms of pass protecting on that blind side, moving back to the right side. So we have Joe Flacco starting potentially week number 1. So he's not as mobile as Zach Wilson. He's not going to be able to, escape the pressure like Zach Wilson is able to do. He doesn't really have that athleticism. So let's transition into Joe Flacco. I know you made a video on this topic of Joe Flacco being quarterback number 1 for now. Obviously, the good news is we don't have to watch a full season of Joe Flacco. Oh, that would have been bad. But at the same time, I love Joe Flacco. I think that this is one of the better quarterback rooms the Jets have had in quite some time. Where Zach Wilson goes down, we have Joe Flacco to step in, and now we have Mike White as his backup. I feel like the Jets are deep at this position, and they're set up pretty well for Zach Wilson to be out. So what's your expectations for Joe Flacco? Say, hypothetically speaking, he's going to start week 1 and maybe even week 2 or maybe even week 3. What's your confidence level in Joe Flacco to get the job done?
Yeah, this is someone who I'm fine with being a spot starter. Like you said, you don't want to see him for a full season because he's not the future at his age, but he is, a fine veteran backup. He's played in this league for a long time. He at one point played at a high level, and last year when he came in and played against the Dolphins, he put up some good numbers. He had, I think, 290 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. And that big play to Elijah Moore is one that a lot of people remember from last year. But, with the Jets East, the last couple of years, he's still able to get the ball down the field. He still has that big arm. So it's not like you're going to be limited to where it's only going to be just strictly rushing attack and underneath stuff. You can still force the ball down the field with him. But you're not going to be able to roll him out. You're not going to be able to run with him, which is fine. That's the main difference between him and Zach Wilson is the mobility. But, it's someone who you could feel comfortable with starting for a game or 2. I don't think it will be much beyond that. I think Wilson will be back at some point in early September.
Yeah, the one thing I love about Joe Flacco, even at his time with the Jets, his first tenure with the Jets when Sam Darnold was the quarterback, he has a beautiful deep ball still. He still has it. I feel like his arm is not going anywhere. The only problem with Joe Flacco, like we mentioned, is he's a statue and he can't really do anything if there's pressure in his face. But if you give Joe Flacco some time, he can take the ball and sling that thing down the field with accuracy. He also knows when to take some zip off of it. He knows when to put touch on it. He's just a seasoned veteran, and he's also not going to be fooled by any defenses. He's not like a young player trying to learn the game. He knows what to expect. He's not going to be rattled by any looks. He's not going to get confused. He's not going to be worrying about anything. And he's a guy that is a Super Bowl MVP that I feel like is just a perfect backup for this Jets team at this point in his career. He's 37 years old, and he has a lot to prove to himself. I feel like he always says that he feels like he should be starting somewhere, which I don't know if a team would want Joe Flacco as their starting quarterback at this point. But my point is, I just feel like Joe Flacco is going to be a perfect quarterback to step in for Zach. That's going to help the offense still move. You're going to get Garrett Wilson. You're going to get Elijah Moore the ball in space. You're going to give the ball to the running backs in the screen passes. You're going to be able to force the ball down the field if you protect them well. That's really all you want. We're not expecting Joe Flacco to go out there and put up 300-plus yards and 3 touchdowns. If you can be a game manager and know when to put the ball in the right situations and have good timing with his teammates, that's all that matters. I just want to make sure that the wide receivers around Joe Flacco and the tight ends and the playmakers are getting the ball, because we want to see this offense evolve as a whole. And we saw what happened last year when Zach Wilson took a step back when he was injured, saw Mike White go out there, execute at a high level, saw Joe Flacco do the same thing. So maybe now this is another time for Zach Wilson to take a step back, watch Joe Flacco execute the offense, and then maybe Joe Flacco plays well, and then Zach Wilson comes back and plays even better.
I'm here for that. I love that.
Can you imagine that? So we got a super chat from Thomas, good member on the channel. Guys, we need Cager on the 53. He's shown some real awesomeness. I like that word, Thomas. Lawrence Cager has been showing some awesomeness. I loved Lawrence Cager when he was an undrafted free agent originally as a wide receiver. I remember when he got called up, his first game, I think, was against the Colts, and he looked good, and then he got hurt that game, and he was looking good, and I was like, damn, I love Lawrence Cager. And then he transitions into the tight end, put on some muscle. Maybe he could be that like that receiving tight end threat. So what's your thoughts of Lawrence Cager? Is there any chance of him making the 53-man roster?
Yeah, I think there is a legitimate chance that he does. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier on this stream. They're deep at this position, so I don't see him cracking the top 3, but they'll probably carry 4 tight ends, and I like what he offers. It's a little bit different than the other guys who are there, with all due respect to them. I mean, Kenny Yeboah is a pretty good receiving tight end also, but he's not going to be as good of a route runner or catcher as Cager because he has all that wide receiver experience. So if it came down to the two of them, although it would hurt because I like Kenny for depth, I think I'm choosing Lawrence Cager because of what he could be in the passing attack. Yeah,
I feel like you bring up a great point. Like, we can sacrifice Cager not being an excellent run blocker or a blocker in general because Ruckert is that blocker, as well as Conklin and Uzama. I mean, we have 3 really good blocking tight ends. So if you want to, balance it out and have a receiving threat out there that can help out the quarterback, I mean, he looked good out there. He looked agile. He looked quick at that tight end spot. So I would absolutely love Cager to make the 53-man roster, or even if he doesn't and he makes the practice squad and he's going to be depth at that position, I'm totally okay with that as well. So I appreciate the donation, Thomas. Hope all's well by you, my man. So when it comes to players that you feel like are destined to break out on offense and defense this season, where they look like bona fide stars, or they look like players that are going to be household names, whether they're young or veterans, who do you think is destined to really become that player that is going to be the face of that team on both sides of the ball, Matt?
Oof, this is such a good question. Usually I go to Tyler Conklin, who I mentioned earlier, but I'm going to go slightly different here and say Elijah Vera Tucker. I think he really takes that step that we are expecting from him. I mean, when he was drafted last year, I think the expectation was that he was going to come in and be great right away. And, there were times where he looked great, but I think it was an up and down rookie year. I think, playing next to George Fant and in between Connor McGovern at center, like, those are 2 quality starters. Are either of those 2 guys stars? I don't think anyone would say that, but they're capable NFL starters in this league. And Vera Tucker has all the tools to take his game to the next level. So I'm going to say AVT for offense. Defensively, I'm going to say Quinnen. I think it's finally the year that he takes that step forward. And the biggest reason for that is they finally have an edge presence, which they've been searching for forever. And I think that's one of the bigger factors to why Quinnen hasn't looked the best, because at times, they're able to, stack up a couple of guys on the offensive line against him on the interior and take him and John Franklin Myers away. But now with Carl Lawson back, Jermaine Johnson, Bryce Huff, who I thought looked really good again in the preseason, I think it's going to look a little bit different for Q.
I mean, listen, if the 2 breakout players are both in the trenches, sign me up, Matt. AVT on one side and Quinnen Williams on the other. That's how you win games. I know Joe Douglas, I'm sure if he can choose 2 players, I think those are the 2 players he'd probably want the most, because it all starts up front. If Elijah Vera-Tucker can make that step, obviously he's transitioning to a new position out on the right side. So I feel like it's going to be a little learning experience for him at first, but I definitely feel like he's going to prove to be that Pro Bowl guard that we traded up for in last year's draft class. And then Quinnen Williams, apparently he's been balling in training camp. I know that he's a little nicked up right now with an ankle problem, but Robert Saleh says he's expected to be back this week and there's nothing to be concerned about. But you're right, Matt. This is the year for Quinnen Williams. This is the year for him to really step up and prove to be the 3rd overall pick that we got a couple of years ago, because Quinnen Williams is no scrub. I mean, it's not like he hasn't played bad football. It's just like he's never lived up to that hype of being a dominant force. You look at his numbers, he's an above average defensive tackle. But even Quinnen Williams would tell you that he holds himself in a higher regard. I think the biggest, I wouldn't say problem, but the biggest thing I've noticed about Quinnen, Matt, is he has a game where he absolutely takes over the game. Two sacks, 3 quarterback hurries, like 3 tackles for losses, and just dominates. And then the next game, he kind of disappears. Whereas it's kind of like he gets all the stats in a couple games, and then the other games, he kind of like disappears. So if he could be consistent throughout an entire season, and I really genuinely believe that the talent around him is only going to benefit him, because, it's not me making excuses, it's just the reality of Quinnen Williams. When you're the number 1, option on that D line, you're going to be double teamed. And John Franklin Myers even thanks Quinnen all the time for being double teamed. So it frees up John Franklin Myers on his one-on-one. So with a healthy Carl Lawson, with another year of JFM, with an addition of Jermaine Johnson and Martin as depth and Clemens and all these guys, Solomon Thomas, it's only going to open up Quinnen Williams this year. And I feel like, Matt, he is going to be the breakout player on the defense as well. So I'm going to give 2 different players, and everyone in the chat, feel free to give us your 2 players on offense. Well, 1 player on offense, 1 player on defense, who you think is destined to break out this year. That's a little dark horse that is no one's really expecting to be that breakout star. So I'm going to start on the defensive side of the ball. I think Michael Carter II is going to break out this year and prove to be one of the top young slot corners in the NFL. He's going to be on the field a lot. He's a player that really stood out to me a lot last season as a rookie. I don't know how good he's going to be in year number 2, and I feel like he has a big role this year. He's going to be lining up in the slot. He's going to be lining up one-on-one on tight ends. He's going to be lining up one-on-one against the slot receivers, and he's going to be blitzing the quarterback at times. And I feel like he's such a cool, unique player for this team on defense. Now, breaking out to be a star, maybe not, but I just do feel like Michael Carter II has a chance to be that solid future slot cornerback for the New York Jets this year. I love what I saw from him as a rookie. And then the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to have to stick with my guy. I've been saying him from the start, and he's been proving me right every year. It's a common answer. It's not like I'm, saying anything crazy, but it's Elijah Moore. I just think Elijah Moore is destined to be the Jets' number 1 receiver. I think he's destined to have 80-plus catches this year. The only thing that's going to hold him back is injury. I just feel like he possesses everything you want at that position, whether it's route running, hands, quickness, agility, yak, mentality, toughness, everything about Elijah Moore just screams breakout to me. And I cannot wait to see what he does as well. So are you excited about Elijah Moore or what?
Oh,
I am.
Absolutely. I think that's a great answer. I almost went with Elijah Moore. I think he leads the team in receiving yards this year. The 1-2 punch of him and Garrett Wilson, I think, is going to be really fun for a long time to come. Elijah, we saw it with that slant. I mean, he just has that speed and that route running ability. And with the ball in his hands, he's very, very dangerous. I think I agree with you 100%. And Michael Carter II is a great answer, too. He, in my eyes, at least, I thought he overachieved last year. I thought he was a lot better than I was anticipating from him. And now if he even takes a little bit of another step forward here in year 2, I think you're right. I think he could be one of the better slots in this league.
Yeah, and he's the only rookie from last year's draft class on defense that's going to be a starter this year. And I feel like, remember, there's 6 players that we drafted on defense last year, and I feel like he's the only one that's going to start. And like you said, he did overachieve. And when you're a 5th-round pick and you get an opportunity to play and you overachieve, you're expected to take another step. And if he takes a big step, you never know. The secondary is looking really good, man. I love what I'm seeing from Jordan Whitehead. DJ Reed has been a little banged up. He's going to be on the field. He was back at practice today. Obviously, Sauce Gardner's there. And Bryce Hall is very interesting because I'm really curious to see how they use Bryce Hall. Like, if DJ Reed is healthy and Sauce Gardner is healthy, obviously, is Bryce Hall not on the field, or is he going to be in certain packages? Is he going to be lined up at safety? Is he going to be lined up in the nickel? Is he going to be lined up in certain packages, or is he just going to be a strictly backup only if one of Sauce or DJ goes down? What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's going to mix in. Like, I don't expect him to not play at all, but I do think that in their base, it's going to be DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, and Michael Carter as the three, so to speak, starting corners on this team. But I think they'll work Bryce Hall in. I think of him as more of an outside guy. I don't know really about him at slot, and theoretically, I guess he could play safety, but I think he's at his best when he's playing on the outside. I mean, guys get banged up all the time. He'll have to come in. He'll get his reps, probably not as much as I personally would like. I really like Paul a lot. I think he could be a starter, but it's good to have depth. We know this all too well with injuries and guys getting banged up. He'll play.
He's way too good to be a backup, and that's a great problem to have. I mean, we have Sauce and DJ Reed, and if he's that good, I see some people saying trade him, which I couldn't disagree with more. There's something called depth, and we need depth. DJ Reed has already proved to be a little banged up in training camp multiple times. So the last thing we need to do is trade away Bryce Hall and DJ Reed goes down. Because if DJ Reed goes down, I'm confident with Sauce and Bryce Hall as our two corners. Obviously, we don't want that to happen because DJ Reed is a very underrated corner in this league. But you don't trade away a really good player just because, he's not starting. You want to have good depth. He's still extremely cheap, and you want to make sure that he is going to be on this roster. When it comes to the depth on this team, what position groups do you feel like is the deepest? Because I think it's the defensive line. And is there anybody that's going to be traded? Because they're going to have to cut some talented players. And Joe Douglas has a really interesting decision. Does he just cut them, or does he try to trade a couple of players on that D-line to flip them for some capital?
Yeah, I mean, he might be able to do it. He's pulled off trades that I haven't expected in the past. For Blake Cashman, for example, from last year. I was not expecting that. There's been plenty of times where he's been able to do it, so I wouldn't rule that out. And you're right. I don't know how they're going to do this. Like a guy like Vinny Curry, for example, he was hurt last year, but he's been a quality NFL player for a long time here. Anai is someone who maybe doesn't make the team. I think like Bryce Huff is a guy who I think has to stay. Jacob Martin is someone that they really like a lot. I don't see him going anywhere. Solomon Thomas is a Robert Saleh guy. I don't think he goes, but man, they're just so deep at that position. I always go with that one the most when I'm trying to project the 53 because there's only so many spots and so many guys that you can keep, but they're going to lose someone pretty good.
Yeah, and remember, there's a team out there that's going to be very happy by taking one of our defensive line because remember, the LA Rams, they had to cut John Franklin Myers because their defensive line was so stacked. And what did the Jets do? We claimed him. And now look where John Franklin Myers is. He got paid, and he's one of the best players on the Jets defense. So that's another thing, man. We obviously can't predict which players are going to be cut, but you know that Joe Douglas is going to be acquiring players on the waiver wire this year. Do I have to remind you guys who we've got from that? It's awesome. Braxton Berrios, John Franklin Myers, Quincy Williams, Ty Johnson. So, like, Joe Douglas has a track of picking up good players off the waiver wire. And like I said, you can't really predict that right now because we don't know who's getting cut. But I feel like the position I'd want them to address is probably offensive tackle for depth purposes. What's your thoughts of like the position group that you'd want them to address when it comes to like signing new players to acquire depth on this team?
Yeah, you stole it. Offensive tackle jumps right out because now when you sign Dwayne Brown, he's going to start. A few weeks ago when they were looking at Brown, it was to be that backup tackle. So I'm still looking for somebody, like you said, look on the waiver wire. Guys will get cut. And maybe still some safety depth. I look at that as, Jordan Whitehead's going to be locked down at strong safety, but free safety is definitely still up in the air. So I think it wouldn't hurt to bring in some depth there. So those are really probably the two spots that I'd keep a close eye on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Jets are really deep at a lot of positions, but the two positions that are concerning are the O-tackle and the safety position. And the signing of Quan Alexander is huge for the linebackers. I mean, how do you feel like the linebacker room is going to play out in terms of starters? Is it going to be obviously CJ Mosley starting? Are they going to, when they have the two linebackers set, is it going to be CJ and Quincy Williams, or is it going to be CJ, Quan Alexander, or they're going to have packages where all three of them are on the field at the same time? How do you see the linebacker position really shaping out?
I would think it's going to be Kwan, just because his coverage skills are probably the best at that linebacker spot. Now, CJ Mosley's the better all-around linebacker, but I think Kwan is just someone who, he can keep up with tight ends. He can cover running backs out of the backfield. He can contain those, running quarterbacks a little bit, which the Jets are going to face some running quarterbacks, especially, Lamar week 1. So I would think it would be him. Now, the Jets really like Quincy Williams a lot, and he runs with a full head of steam, and sometimes he gets a little ahead of himself, which is what we saw in the first preseason game. But I like him as in more of the depth role. I don't think he's a starter on a good football team or on a good defense, but I think if he mixes in with Quan Alexander a little bit, then I think you're in much better shape at linebacker. But at the end of the day, I think they go with the veteran.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they really manipulate that position group, because now we have depth there. That signing of Alexander was absolutely huge, because if Quincy went down, then we don't really know what to do. I mean, we have Hamza Nasruddin and we have Jamie and Sherwood still entering year number 2, but those two players I feel like still have a long way to go in their development, as they were safeties transitioning to the linebacker spot. When it comes to the roster cuts, who are some guys that you think are going to be surprise cuts, who are on the roster bubble, players that have to really prove their worth in the preseason and training camp leading up to that final cut day? Because the Jets are deep at certain positions, and there's going to be some players that they're going to have to move on from.
I'm trying to think of like some outside the box answers. There's one that's jumping out right now on offense, and I'll go Tevin Coleman. I think there's a chance that Bam Knight can beat him out for the RB3 spot. Most people, they chalk up Ty Johnson and Michael Pirine as cuts, which I think is probably more than likely going to happen. But if we're trying to go a little outside the box or surprise, I think Tevin Coleman cut would be surprising, but not totally outlandish, because of having Zonovan Knight, who I thought looked really good in the preseason and has had a training camp that's looked pretty good. And plus, if he can contribute on special teams, I feel like that's exactly what you want from your third running back.
Yeah, Bam Knight, I love what I saw from him. You mentioned that kick return that really set up that touchdown at the end of the game. I feel like it would be, and you said it would be shocking to cut Tevin Coleman. I feel like the only benefit to keeping Coleman is that veteran presence, but I prefer to go young. I mean, I would love to have, a rookie running back in Breece Hall, a rookie undrafted free agent in Bam Knight, and a year 2 guy in Michael Carter. Those 3 running backs are young. They're exciting. Talking about the running back position real quick, what's your overall expectations? We didn't really get to see a lot from those guys in preseason. They didn't really step up in terms of breaking free on big runs. The offensive line didn't really do them any favors in week number 1 of the preseason. But what's your expectation, even from Carter's perspective? Because we're all talking about Hall, because he needs to be talked about in that glowing light, because seeing him out there with the ball in his hands, he just looks like a prototypical running back, man. He has the build, 220 pounds, 6 foot tall. He just looks like a modern day stocky beast NFL running back. But I feel like a lot of people are forgetting about Michael Carter, and I feel like Carter is going to put up better numbers this year than he did last year. So what's your expectation level for those two guys?
Yeah, they're going to split time, and not like a 50-50 split, but I just don't see them running their rookie Breece Hall into the ground. I think they're going to get Michael Carter in. We know that he is good as a pass catcher, and he was explosive last year on this team. He was the best running back the Jets had last year, and I was ready to go into the year with him as running back 1 and then draft a mid-round running back to pair with him, but they decided to get aggressive and go with Breece, who is, projects to be very, very good. So, again, he's not going to disappear. I don't think he's going to have, an 800-yard season or anything like that, but can he be a steady third down running back who comes in and gives you, like Bilal Powell for all those years, like that, in that kind of numbers range, where he's just a reliable guy that could help spell your running back. And in today's league, you don't have workhorse backs anymore. Outside of Derrick Henry and Jonathan Taylor, like, who's really running their running back like 300 times a year? It doesn't really happen anymore. So you need a good RB2, and that's exactly what Michael Carter is.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I think Hall has that ability to be a Jonathan Taylor type of handling that workload. I mean, he proved to be a workhorse in college, but you don't want to run him into the ground as in his rookie season. You want to spread the wealth around, especially when you have a talented back like Michael Carter, who I think is going to have a really tremendous season. Guys, we have over 200 people tuning into the show right now. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Let's get to 100 likes by the end of the stream. That would be greatly appreciated. We got Matt on the channel talking about what's going on in Jets training camp, what's going on in Jets preseason. So let me know your thoughts in the chat of anything else you guys want to talk about. And please do not forget to hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and check out Matt's channel as well if you're not tuned into his show and podcast. That is all linked down below in the description. Let's pivot to the upcoming game. We got a joint practice coming to One Jets Drive against the Atlanta Falcons on Friday. I'll be there with Ryan. And another joint practice is Saturday, and then the preseason game is Monday. So what are you looking forward to the most in week 2 of the preseason? Which players are you keeping an eye out for? Obviously, we're not going to see Zach Wilson out there, but what are some players that you're really going to be taking note of week number 2?
Yeah, for me, it's always kind of the depth guys who are going to be the ones that you focus on, because you're not going to see a ton from the starters. I do want to see a little bit of more of what we saw from Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, though. I'll mention them on the offensive side of the ball just because, they flashed their potential, so it'd be nice to see that again. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm just going to continue to watch that defensive line rotation and see who's working in with the ones, who looks good and getting, their reps and getting pressures. Do we see a repeat performance from Jabari Zuniga or Michael Clemens? And I think, that's really the 2 spots that I'll be looking at, because we talked about it. Defensive line depth probably is their biggest. So I want to see who the coaches are favoring and who steps up.
Is Michael Clemens going to have a bounce another game where he's just sprinting people down and smashing his whole hands on the ground? I sure hope so. Michael Clemens is slowly becoming a fan favorite for a multitude of reasons. I think I'm expecting Joe Flacco to probably go out there and play. Would you agree? Like 1 or 2 series or no?
Yeah, I would think you got to get him out there at least once during the preseason. Now with only 2 more games remaining, I don't know if they would do that in the final preseason game, but I would think he needs at least a series or 2 before the opening season.
Yeah, I mean, talking about what happened in today's camp, Joe Flacco on fire, 14 of 17, 3 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion, hitting Corey Davis on back-to-back on a touchdown, a 2-point conversion, having Tyler Conklin in the end zone, Braxton Berrios in the end zone. So I'm really curious to see what Joe Flacco looks like, and especially if he's going to get some burn out there in preseason. But you guys remember what preseason is all about. What are these backup guys looking like? What are the players that are fighting to make the roster, fighting for their lives, fighting for their jobs looking like? Guys like Bam Knight, guys like Calvin Jackson, guys like even Tariq Black, guys like, players all over this roster that we saw at the end of the game last year on Friday. Strevler, like, what was your thoughts of that guy? Because he came out of nowhere, had no team reps in practice, and goes out there and just running all over the place, throwing a touchdown to Calvin Jackson. Is he going to do that again?
I hope so. He was fun, man. I'd love to see more of him. I forget who was it. Because Connor Rogers had a great line for him. He called him a more fun version of Taysom Hill, which I think that's really funny.
He does run like him.
He does, right? But yeah, he plays with a little bit of reckless abandon. Like you didn't know what you were going to get on each play, but it was just fun, that huge long run that he had. Yeah, I would like to see some more of him in the second half.
Yeah, so week number 2 of the preseason kicks off on Monday Night Football at MetLife Stadium against the Atlanta Falcons. That's going to be pretty interesting to see. Hopefully, the offense can continue to play well, and the defensive line is going to be balling out as well. So to finish off the stream, guys, we're going to open this up to a quick Jets Q&A, and then we're going to get out of here to talk about some Jets stuff later on on the channel tomorrow. So anybody in the chat wants to ask Matt and I any question, let me know in the chat. Any super chats comes first. I love being back talking Jets with you guys. It's been a long time since I've been back into the grind of Jets media, so it feels good to be back. Feels good to be talking Jets and seeing everybody in the chat. I'm excited, man. The season's right around the corner. Matt, did you go to any training camps yet this year?
I unfortunately haven't been able to go yet. I usually like to go to the green and white scrimmage, but I was away. I was in Chicago for that. But I am going to the preseason game against the Falcons, so that'll be like my, I guess, preseason / training camp experience this year.
Where are you sitting?
Great question. I think it's 120. It's on the first level, somewhere towards one of the corners in the end zone.
Going to preseason games are fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I do too. Cause I don't know. I nerd out. I like watching the back end of the roster, guys.
Yeah, I know some of my friends like you. Why do you care so much about preseason? I'm like, what do you mean? It's so cool. You get to watch all these back end people trying to make the roster. Like, even though it doesn't matter about the Jets team and during the season, but it is what it is. Ethan says, anyone who thinks Flacco should start over Zach when he's fully healthy are delusional. We need to see what Zach is. There's people out there that think this. Oh man.
Oh yeah, the chat is going wild with it.
What? That Flacco should start over Zach even when he's healthy?
If the Jets get off to a hot start, that he should stick.
If Flacco starts off 3-0 and Zach gets healthy in week 4, he's out there. I mean, thank you, Joe. Time for Zach. This is a good question. Final 53 at wide receiver, running back, and tight end. So we kind of already touched on the running back and the tight end. Pretty sure we said Carter Hall, and you said hot take Bam.
Yep.
Tight end Ruckert, Uzama, Conklin. You said hot take Cager.
Mm-hmm.
So wide receiver, how many are we holding on to, and who are they going to be?
I'll go 6, and I'll say they go Davis. I'll say that they go with Wilson, Moore, Berrios, Jeff Smith, and Denzel sticks as his wide receiver.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most likely scenario. I think Jeff Smith is going to make this team. I feel like he's very valuable on special teams, and he's also pretty, he's not amazing, but I feel like whenever his name is called, he does show some flashes here and there. So I wouldn't be shocked with that. I would love to see Calvin Jackson make it, but I don't think there's any room for him. Tariq Black's probably not going to make it either. So hopefully those guys can stay in the practice squad in case any injuries come to fruition, which let's hope never happens. Do you think Jermaine Johnson will start? So remember, I think this defensive line, you cannot really read into who starts. It's more about a rotation. Even if he's not out there on the first drive, I feel like he's going to be more of a pass rushing guy, even though he excels in the run game as well. But I feel like, the first 4 guys on the defensive line probably going to be, based on what I'm seeing, is John Franklin Myers on the edge with 2 interior defensive tackles with Quinnen and maybe even Solomon Thomas and then Carl Lawson on running downs. And then when it comes to passing downs, you kick John Franklin Myers inside. And then that's when you have Jermaine on the outside. That's when you have Carl Lawson on the outside and Quinnen. So what's your thoughts about Jermaine Johnson, and how do you think they're going to rotate him in his rookie season?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say if he's going to be a starter or not, just because of how often these guys are going to rotate. Now, I will say on the base, I think they are going to have JFM play on the outside, so that would probably take Jermaine Johnson out. But in like second and long and third and long situations, Jermaine Johnson's going to be in there and JFM will kick inside. So he's going to get more than enough snaps in his rookie year.
Yeah, I think a lot of Jets fans are like, for whatever reason, forgetting that John Franklin Myers is really good lining on the outside. Like, he was a beast last year as an edge rusher. And yes, we have Carl Lawson coming back. We added Jermaine Johnson. We have Michael Clemens. We have Jacob Martin. But that's the beauty of having JFM. He's very versatile. He can line up on the outside and kick in the inside as well. So we'll see what that happens. So I see everyone in the chat is... Yeah, that's the only... So Denzel Mims is actually working on special teams, I saw today in practice. What's your thoughts of Denzel? Did you see anything in the preseason game that made you feel happy or concerned? Or do you think that he has any type of, opportunity, if his name is called, to be some type of impact this year? Like, where you stand with Denzel?
Can the answer be both? There were things that I was really happy about. He had a couple nice catches, which was good. But then on the next possession, he had a penalty and a drop. It's like, it's a roller coaster ride with him. I just wish he would figure it out upstairs, because he very clearly has the physical talent, but just something is going on in his head, because there's no excuse.
Yeah, I feel like this is a make or break year for Denzel. Joe Douglas and Saleh, they always say they give these players 3 years to really prove their worth. And he's entering year number 3. And unfortunately, Mekhi Becton, we only saw 1 year of Mekhi, and he was a dominant force in his rookie season, but we did not see him in year number 2 or in year number 3. Guys, if you can help me out, let's get to 100 likes. 89 likes with 207 people tuning in. We need 11 more. That would be greatly appreciated before we finish things off here on Jets Media. First live stream since I've been back home. Feels good to be back in the swing of things. Feels like there's a lot of stuff trending in the right direction for the Jets. Obviously, bad news about the injury front, but the injuries are turning up in a good way with Zach Wilson. Best case scenario with that. Quinton Williams' ankle injury is not too severe. And I feel like this Jets team has a lot of, fun things to be looking forward to, man. Whether it's the offense or whether it's the defense, whether it's the special teams, the coaching staff, there's a lot of things to look forward to, man. And I'm really excited to see what happens. So we're going to be finishing off the stream here now, man. We're going to get into a couple more questions and then we're going to wrap things up. What are you most excited about this season? What are you most excited about, Matt, in general?
Vague answer, but the young guys is what I'm going to say. I want to see the development of the young players. Zach Wilson, obviously coming back and figuring out what he is, but the Elijah Moores, the Garrett Wilson, both running backs, Preseason, Michael Carter, on the defensive side of the ball. Carl Lawson coming back, Jermaine Johnson, who you just took, Sauce, who you just took early. So I think it's really, the last 2 draft classes pretty much and just seeing how they develop.
I think that's a great answer. I think, it's so crazy how stacked this Jets team is with youth and talented youth. It's not like we have a team that we're excited for this season that's going to fizzle out. We have a team that we're really building here for the future, and that's what Jets fans need to remember about this season. It doesn't feel like last year where, we have a rookie quarterback, rookie head coach, and we have excuses set up, whereas this year it's year number 2. You have to make some noise. But at the end of the day, this season is also about development. We have a rookie draft class that is getting praised by everybody in the national media about how insane that draft class truly is. And remember that they're rookies. They're not going to be stars right away. They're going to be developing this season. But the future of that draft class on top of last year's draft class. And listen, I know that Joe Douglas's first draft class is definitely not looking too good right now, but I think he's been getting better and better. He learned. That was with Adam Gase. It was the COVID year where he had the draft from his home. And then his second draft class was, I think, a home run with Elijah Moore, AVT, and Carter. And then this year's draft class was like a grand slam. So obviously the draft capital had a lot to do with that. And that is because of Joe Douglas being a dog and getting those picks. But it's going to be upsetting this year, Matt, not having all that draft capital that we're used to.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a change. But I'm as fun as it was for a couple years, I'd rather start seeing the success on the football field than be talking about draft picks in November and doing months and months of mock drafts.
Let's hope that we're picking 27th in the first round. Yeah. And let's hope that we're not even discussing the draft until February. I don't want to see one question about the draft in my chat until late January, early February, when the season's over. I'm not doing any mock drafts in December. Okay, Matt, how do you feel about that?
I love that. I hope that's the case. I hope the Jets are in it in December and we don't have to talk about the NFL draft. That's my dream.
Oh my God, that would be so awesome. So that's going to wrap up the stream, man. Matt, it's always a pleasure to have you on the stream. I appreciate you welcoming me back on my 2-week hiatus. And anything you'd like to say before we finish things off or what you got going on?
Yeah, check out my stuff at Matt O'Leary NY on YouTube and social media. We're cranking out videos daily now, ramping up for the season, and I can't wait. It's great to have you back, Richie. We were definitely missed in the Jets content community. Yeah, I missed you guys too. It felt very strange not talking about every day of Jets training camp, but it's all good. I'm back right when the season is kicking up. It's 3 Sundays or 4 Sundays until the opener. Oh my God, it's here, everyone. It's finally here. Guys, make sure you hit that thumbs up button if you did not already, and subscribe to Matt O'Leary down below in the description, checking out his YouTube channel and his podcast, Just Jets. We appreciate all the support here on Jets Media. Stay tuned for more Jets content, of course, and let's go Jets. Peace out, everybody.